Okay, so this video is going to run through the process of how we can use Onshape to design a controller for our Jouster, which we can then laser cut out of acrylic plastic and then use heat to bend into a three-dimensional shape, something like this. Hopefully you can do something a bit more interesting than this one. This is pretty basic, but this will go through the steps involved and then you can expand on it from there. Okay, but before we can do something like that, we really do need a design on paper first. So my design on paper looked a little bit like this. I took the different parts, the circuit board, the battery holder, the buttons, and I kind of laid them out on a piece of paper, got a rough idea of where they would fit, and then drew a neat diagram like this, and included dimensions, hole sizes, all of that kind of stuff there. So if you look at my design, it's basically made out of 5 different rectangles, which can then be bent into that three-dimensional shape we saw earlier. So the main part's 150 wide and 90 tall, and then the side parts are 35 wide and 90 tall, and then the little bits that curl in the bottom are 15 millimeters wide and 90 millimeters tall. On the top part, there are holes for the circuit board. I measured the distance between the holes in the circuit board as 74 wide and 24 millimeters high, and then they're 4 millimeter holes to fit the screws, and then the buttons are 7 millimeter holes, and I've put them so they're about 40 millimeters apart. So that's the basic design I'm going to go for. Okay, so if I go to Onshape and open up a new blank design, the first thing I'm going to do is press on the cube and then pick the top view, so I'm looking at it from above. Go to the pencil, press on there, and I'm going to choose a center point rectangle. So this is a rectangle where you press where you want the center to go and then click and drag with your finger from there. So my center will be the center of the design. There, click and drag it out, and there's my rectangle. Now at the moment the rectangle is blue, right? And blue is your enemy, okay? Blue lines on your design means it's an unconstrained sketch. Now, unconstrained sketches means that not everything in your design is fixed or locked into place. And that means that when you move some things in your design, you may actually end up disturbing some of your earlier things you did. So for example, in here, if you look where those buttonholes are, the buttonholes are quite obviously closer to one edge of the design than they are to the other. And that's because my design wasn't constrained properly. So I did the holes and then I did something else, and the change I did later on ended up moving some of those holes to the left. Okay, we don't want that. It's not the end of the world for this design, but you don't really want that. So you need to make sure your design is constrained properly. Everything's locked into place. So how do we know if a design's constrained properly? Well, it's actually pretty easy. When your design has all black lines on it while you're editing it, that means it's constrained. If you have all blue lines, it's not constrained, so it needs to be fixed. And if some of the lines are blue and some of the lines are black, that's also a problem as well. We want all of our lines while we're editing to be black. Okay, so I'll need to do something about that a bit later on. For now, I'm going to get my 2 fingers and pinch to zoom in. And I'm going to add 2 little rectangles on the side. One for the side bit and one for the little bit that curls in the bottom of my 3D design. Probably the easiest way of doing that is getting a line tool and just going like that. There's my first rectangle, and there's my, whoops, undo that. There's my second rectangle. Now they don't look very rectangular at the moment, but that's not a problem because we can use a tool called horizontal. So the way we do that, at the moment you can see that I've on the line tool, so I'm going to unselect the line tool and I'm going to pick the ones that aren't horizontal. So that guy, and that guy. Whoops. So I've picked all the edges that aren't horizontal in my design. I might as well do that one as well, just in case that's not horizontal. And then I go to the pencil and there's this little tool down the bottom called horizontal. So I press on that and it makes everything horizontal. Fantastic. Oops, so now I can zoom out. Actually might zoom in a bit more. Now I can start setting the dimensions, because at the moment there's no dimensions to this. So I go to here, pick my dimension tool. If you've been having problems getting this dimension tool to work, the easiest way of getting it to work is you press on the corners of the thing that you want to add a dimension to rather than pressing on the edge itself. So if I want to set the main width of my rectangle, the top part, to be 150, I press on the corners of the main rectangle. That's my dimension box, so I just click and drag it down to the bottom, press on that, and I'll make it 150 wide. There we go, that looks better. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the side rectangle, and that needs to be 35 wide. And then the last thing I'll do the same thing, press on the corners of the little eeny-weeny rectangle and set that to be 15. Okay, that's looking pretty good. You'll notice that some of my blue lines have changed to black, so we've constrained some of our bits here, which is what we want. But I haven't set the height of my rectangle to be 90. So now press on that corner, and we'll set that to be 90. And now you can see that all of my lines have turned black, which is great. Having said that, I'm not finished yet because I don't have the side and the bottom rectangles on the left-hand bit at the moment. So I could just do the same thing on that side, or I could use the mirror tool. And to use the mirror tool, I'm going to draw a line that goes through a vertical line that goes through the middle of my design. And I may as well do it while I'm here. Another, whoops. And I'll draw a horizontal line that goes through the middle. So now I've got a vertical mirror line and a horizontal mirror line that we can use as we build our design. Now these designs, these mirror lines we don't actually want to be in our final design. We don't want the mirror lines to be laser cut out. So if you have a line that's part of your construction but isn't going to be, in your final design, the way that you set that is you press on the line so it gets highlighted. So I've highlighted that vertical mirror line in yellow. And then over here in the corner where it's orange, that's the thing I use to switch between actual lines in your design and construction lines that are just there for working out. Construction lines are dotted lines. So if you look at that now, that vertical mirror line's turned into a dotted line, which means it's a construction line, but it won't appear in our final design, which is what we want. And then I'll do the same thing. I'll click on my horizontal, press that construction thing again, and now they're both dotted lines. Okay, so I won't use the horizontal mirror line yet, but I will use the vertical mirror line to mirror these bits on the side, the 35 rectangle and the 15 rectangle. And the way I do that, and you have to be a little bit patient when you do this because it's a little bit fiddly on an iPad with just your finger, but I'm going to press on all of the edges, all of the edges that I want to mirror. So they're all highlighted in yellow now, and now I can go to my pencil, find the mirror tool near the bottom, and press on that vertical mirror line. And then, hey presto, now I've got the same stuff on the other side. So I'm getting pretty close to being done here. The next thing is to add those buttons, or the holes for the buttons, and also the holes for the controller board. So I might start with the holes for the controller board first. If I go back to my original design, if we look at that design there, those holes are 4mm holes, and they are 74mm apart in the horizontal direction and 24mm apart in the vertical. So what I'll do is I'll go back to here, and I'm going to go pick center point rectangle again. And over here, I'm going to press on that line that goes through the middle, and I'm going to drag out another rectangle. And that's going to be where I put the holes for my controller board. I'll get my dimension tool out, press on two corners there, and set that to be 74. And then I'll press on two corners here and here, and set that to be 24. Okay, now we're cooking. And now on those corners, I'm going to put 4 circles. So I pick center point circle, press on the corner, and then drag out a circle. Do the same thing here, press on the corner, drag out a circle, press on the corner, drag out a circle, press on the corner, drag out a circle. Okay, now from there, Those circles are all obviously different sizes, so I can go to my dimension tool again, press on the circles, and then set them all to be 4 millimeters. There probably is a faster way of doing this, but this works for me. There we go. So now I've got my circles. What else do we need? Now that rectangle we've just used, we don't want that to be part of our final design that gets laser cut. So we'll unselect the dimension tool. We'll press on all of these guys here and then turn them into construction lines. And then we'll notice that they're blue there. That's, what do we want to do about that? The reason they're blue is because we haven't set a height between where that circle is and where the top is. So we may as well do that now. If I press on the center of the circle and then press on that top edge, and that little dimension thing there is how far it is from the center of the circle to the top edge. And we can set that to be 5. And now everything's turned black, so now it's properly constrained. So now I'm getting really close. Now I just need the 4 buttonholes. So if I look at this is not the world's greatest sketch here, but I've set it so the buttons are 40 millimeters apart, and I've set it so that the buttonholes are 10 millimeters in from the edge. What I haven't done is put how far away they are from the top and the bottom edges of my design. I may as well put them halfway between the top and the bottom. So if the whole thing from top to bottom is 90 millimeters and the buttons are 40 millimeters apart, then that means altogether there's 50 millimeters of space between the buttons and the edge. Half of that's 25. So we'll have the buttons 25 millimeters from the top edge and 25 millimeters from the bottom. And then 10 millimeters in horizontally from the left-hand edge. And the holes themselves are going to be 7 millimeters. So if I go back to here, okay, so I'm going to pick center point circle. I'm just going to randomly click anywhere there and just create a random circle. Then I'm going to go to my dimension tool, press on it, set it to be 7 millimeters in diameter. And you'll notice it's blue, which means it's unconstrained, which is a bad no-no. And that's because we haven't told Onshape how far in it's supposed to be from each of the edges. But we can do that pretty easily. We just go to our dimension tool again, so we don't need that. And we press on the center of the circle, the center of the circle, and then press on the left-hand edge. And then this little guy here is how far in it is, and we want it to be exactly 10 millimeters in, so we'll set that to 10. And then we can do the same thing as we did before, press on the center, press on the top edge, and then that is how far it is in from the top edge, and we'll set that to be 25. And there we go. So we've got our first buttonhole as the right size and in the right place. We wouldn't want to have to do that 4 times because that's a little bit fiddly, but we can use our mirror tool. So we'll unselect the dimension tool. We'll click on click on the circle so it gets highlighted in yellow. And then we'll go to here, we'll pick mirror, and we're going to mirror it in the horizontal dotted line. So we get a second one underneath. So I press that horizontal dotted line for my mirror line, and now I've got a second circle underneath. Beautiful. And now I just need, I just need 2 more circles on the other side. So what I can do is I can select those 2 circles, the top one and the bottom one, pick the mirror tool, press the vertical mirror line, and now I've got 4 over the other side. So now I've got holes for the circuit board, holes for the buttons. I'm pretty much done here. All I might do, and I'll get you to do this as well, is just put some text in here so we know who it belongs to when we laser cut it out, right? So the text tool, the easiest way of doing it is Press where you want the corner to go, and then click and drag out to make your text box. Put your name in. Oops, capital letters. Now, by default, it just becomes any old size, right? And that's obviously too big, but we can go back to our old friend, the dimension tool, and we can click on the top corners. And when we do that, we get a dimension that is obviously way too big. Let's set it to be 70 instead. Okay. And then from there, if I want to move it, which I will, I can unselect the dimension tool, press on that, and can move it around like that. But let's say I want it to be exactly in the middle, like here somewhere where I'm clicking. Well, the way I can do that is I can go to here, pick a point, put my point somewhere on that dotted line, which goes through the exact middle, and then, and this is a little bit fiddly, but let's see if we can get it to work. If I click on one of those corners, and then drag, okay. So if I do that, and if I look really carefully, you might notice there are two dots that runs through the middle there. What I can do is I can select one of those dots, select that dot that's exactly in the middle, and I want them to line up with each other. If they line up with each other, then my design will be perfectly in the middle. So I've highlighted both of those. They're both highlighted in yellow. I can go to my pencil, and down the bottom there's this little thing called coincident. If I press that, those two dots will line up with each other. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try that again. Dot, dot, whoops. There we go, that looks a little bit better. There we go, so now that design is lined up and it is pretty much done. The only thing I probably need to do is just set a dimension so it goes like a nice black color. So I'll just press here, and we'll set them to be, that text to be 10 millimeters in from the edge. And there we go. So hey presto, so everything has turned a nice black color, which means that our design is fully constrained and it's not going to have any problems if we have to make any changes to it later on. Which is an important thing because, remember, the way you're going to do this is you will share your design with me by going up to here and putting my email address in there if it's like adding me as an individual. So if you wanted to add me as an individual, it's my email address, Graham, .low 408 at schools, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so put that in, and then I've got access to your design. I can download it when I want to laser cut it. If there's any problems with it, I can fix those problems if necessary as well, right? What I found with the robot base is because some of our designs weren't constrained properly, that when I had to make some changes, it caused all sorts of problems because I would be moving one part of the design and other parts would move at the same time as well. So ideally, we have our design fully constrained like that. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. Go off and do it. If you have any problems, come ask me for help.